Hey, welcome back to Real World Deer Hunter. I'm Steve. Today we're going to talk about some cartridges, all of the same caliber, which were pretty popular at one time. And for the life of me, why aren't they more popular? Let's look at a few factors here. White-tailed deer is not a big animal. Sure, if you go to Canada, they might be 300 pounds on the hoof. If you're out in the Midwest, a big one would be 250 on the hoof. Out east, 185 on the hoof is a good one. You know, there are some deer that will dress out over 200 pounds, but they're not normal. Go to the Southwest, 150 pounds is a good one. So why, oh why, are these not more popular? They come out of the barrel at least 3,000 up to 3,400 feet a second. That's pretty good. Now, all these cartridges are in 257. That's right, 257. Now, you're going to notice that I'm going to leave out the 250/3000 Savage, okay? It's not a factor. The biggest limiting factor on that cartridge is probably the guns that it was chambered in. They just couldn't handle the pressure. So I understand that one. But we're going to talk about three, and two of them in modern loadings can be almost identical. The third one is basically the Magnum. That's right, 25 Magnum. Now, what I'm getting at is the 257 Weatherby. That's the Magnum version. But let's look at Bob, okay? 257 Roberts. Historically, it was loaded with heavier bullets at moderate speeds, and it was a good medium range cartridge, it really was. But today there's loadings that'll take a 117 grain bullet and be just about touching 3,000 feet a second, or in a hand load a hair more. Now, it's a case of too little too late. I mean, 257 Roberts killed a lot of deer, and guys that are still using them still shoot a lot of deer with them. And guess what? They don't bounce off. The one I really want to get to, though, is the 2506. Now, we're going to compare the 2506 to the 257 Roberts and the 257 Weatherby Magnum. Now, one thing you have to know about when you look at Weatherby ballistics is there tends to be a little smoke and mirrors with them. Okay, and I'm not saying they're lying, but they give you a 300-yard sight-in for their ballistics on their ammo. You have to take that into account. The longest anybody else gives you is 200. Now you can go into a ballistics calculator and figure it out. And guess what? I'm stupid, but I can tell a lot just by the loading. So, if we're going to measure the rifles, we have 117 grain SST, and it's called a plus P round, which is more powerful than the normal, versus 110 grain 2506 ELDX versus 110 grain 257 Weatherby ELDX. Now, the 117 grain SST and a plus P loading leaves the barrel at 29.46. Okay, we have to take what they're saying for granted because we're going to take all three what they're saying for granted. Now, if we reduce that to a 110 grain load, it's only 7 grains, you got to bet that you're going to get close to 3,100 feet a second in a hand load. that'll give you about 2,255 pounds of energy out of the muzzle. Pretty darn good. Now, that 2506 load with the 110 grain ELDX is leaving a barrel 3,100 feet a second. So theoretically, you could pretty much match that, if not come within a shadow, with the 257 Roberts in a hand load. Okay? 2406 for the energy. Now, here's where we get the big difference. The 257 Weatherby is going to leave the barrel at 3,400 feet a second. And that's 2,800 foot-pounds. That's truly a Magnum 25 caliber. Not that you need it under most conditions, but hey, if you're shooting ultra long range, that will make a difference. Less clicks on the turret, that's for sure. So, when you get all the way out there to 500 yards, you're still at 1,866 feet a second on the Roberts, which is right at 905 foot-pounds of energy, which is about borderline for a bullet to open up. Now, it is an SST, so it is somewhat more fragile than other bullets, and that's why I draw the line at 500. So, you can still kill a deer. Okay? You're down to 2175 in the 2506 with 1,155 pounds at that same range. Now, because it's an ELDX and it's designed for extra long distance, that bullet will open up down to about 1,600 feet a second. So you should still get good expansion out of the 2506. At 500 yards with the 257 Weatherby, you're at 2384 in the way of velocity, plenty to open a bullet up, and you're still at 1,388 foot-pounds of energy. What does that mean? Well, one does stand head and shoulders above the rest. It is the 257 Weatherby, especially if you're going to turn your 2506 into an elk rifle, which out to 300 to 400 yards is completely doable. But let's talk about the 2506. Recoil is more manageable. You're talking about 4 inches of drop difference at 500 than the 257 Weatherby. Is that worth going to really expensive ammunition? You're probably talking about $80 a box versus 2506 ammo. It'll probably be somewhere in the $40 a box range. And the other thing is, if this is a deer hunting channel and we're just talking about deer hunting, 2506 will do anything you'd ever want it to do. And for that matter, if you hand load a 257 Roberts, it could be the ballistic twin of the 2506. Hey, what do you think about what I said? Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you own a 257 Roberts and use it? Let me know your story. I've shot a bunch of deer with the 2506. My dad shot a bunch more than I did with the 2506. Ain't never seen one walk away. So, tell me what you think.